Coming up on This Week in Radio Tech, I'm with John Bisset. Hey, John.
Hey, how are you, Kurt?
We're at the Cumulus stations in Charleston, South Carolina, getting ready to go through a whole bunch of tips and tricks and talk to JT Justin Tucker. He's the Director of Engineering here at Cumulus. Got a great story about this new control room that we're in. Coming up next on TWiRT.
This Week in Radio Tech is brought to you by Broadcasters General Store with outstanding service, savings, and support. Online at bgs.cc. By Broadcast Bionics with the Bionic Studio, including talk show control, social media, and visual radio. Broadcast Bionics brings exceptional audience engagement to radio and TV. By Angry Audio. Audio problems disappear when you get angry at angryaudio.com. By Nautel, worry-free transmission you can count on with outstanding control, reliability, efficiencies, and Nautel's unmatched 24/7 customer support. Online at nautel.com. And by Max Connect Wireless, prioritized high-speed internet service designed for transmitter sites and remote broadcasts.
Hi, welcome into This Week in Radio Tech. I'm Kirk Harnack. Delighted that you're here, and I'm delighted that my guest, John, is here. Hi, John.
How are you, Kirk?
I'm
good to see you.
We're doing This Week in Radio Tech from Charleston, South Carolina today, and we're at the studios of Cumulus Media in Charleston. And they've been here for years and years, but they've made some changes recently. They've moved the floor plan around some, and in a little while, Justin Tucker, their Director of Engineering here in Charleston, is going to join us and tell us a little bit about this room that we're standing in. This is a new build out. And we're going to, John and I will get out of the way in a few minutes, and we'll show that to you. John, I'm so delighted that you're here. You don't live too far from here.
Not too far, no. Kind of become a Charleston native now.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
You know, both of us work for Telos Alliance, so we're wearing our shirts there, as you can see. And our show is brought to you in part by Telos Alliance. I appreciate them giving me a little time every day, and today, him too, to play hooky and to do This Week in Radio Tech.
Thank you.
So a lot of our colleagues are off in Amsterdam this week, and they have been setting up the booth. What are they there for?
This is the International Broadcast Convention, and it brings people from all over the world. It's kind of like the International NAB, National Association of Broadcasters, which happens in Vegas every spring.
And the one in Amsterdam happens there every fall or late in the summer, typically in September. And, you know, back years ago, when Telos was a much smaller company, I would get to go to Amsterdam. But we've got plenty of people now. We have people, several people stationed in Europe, actually a bunch stationed in Europe, developers. I'm speaking for Telos Alliance now. We have developers there. We have salespeople. We have servicing people,
Yes.
software writers, hardware. People who test hardware are in Europe. So it's covered pretty well, and that's why we're here at home.
We're here today, but we're glad to be with you all today.
John, a lot of folks know you from the Workbench column in Radio World.
Right.
How long have you been doing that?
Been over 30 years.
Oh, wow.
Long time.
Okay.
Long time.
Okay.
Yeah. Really enjoyed it, though. And I'd like to say thank you for everybody that has sent something in. And if you haven't sent something in, please do. We love to get your tips, your thoughts of the latest one, Kirk, has been, what is that big bird's nest in that vacant transmitter building? They don't know whether it's birds or if it's mice or what it is, but it looks like the consensus is that it's birds. So anyway, but we have some fun with some neat pictures like that, but also some real good tips, and we really appreciate you sending those in to me.
Have they considered that it could be a Sasquatch nest?
Sasquatch got to get in through a 3-inch coax port.
No. Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
so I don't think it would be.
Okay. See, but the birds made a nest much bigger than themselves.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what it seems like.
We've got a ton of pictures coming up to show you. And also Justin Tucker will be here to tell us a little bit about this room. So thanks for joining us for This Week in Radio Tech. We're brought to you in part by Nautel. And Nautel is cranking up the Transmission Talk Tuesday roundtable discussions again. And there are 2 of them that you can register for right now. They're going on in October. So the next one that's coming up, if we could get that on the screen, coming up in October, Transmission Talk Tuesday. Of course, Jeff Welton is your host for that. I appreciate Nautel doing this for the broadcast industry. There's one coming up on October the 17th, transmitter site considerations. Number 1 thing, talking about antennas, lines, combiners, and things like that. You can register for that one. And then on Halloween, we have transmitter site considerations. Number 2, air handling and cooling. You can register for that one. You can register for both of them at the same time. And even if you think you can't make it to the roundtable discussion when it's live, go ahead and register. You get your name on there, and they will send you only a couple of emails. They'll remind you about it, a day before, and they'll remind you about it about an hour before.
Right.
So Nautel is very respectful of your time, and I register for all these, and I get an email to remind me. And hey, if I'm not busy or swamped doing something else, I'll make sure to attend. But sometimes I'm swamped, and so I'll watch the replay because they make all those available on the website. Thanks, Nautel. Thank you very much for supporting broadcast engineers through Transmission Talk Tuesday, also by making great equipment. I've just put some in, making a new HD station in Mississippi, and gotten some great tech support from them for a few things that I didn't understand. In fact, I just talked to their support today. Stephen at their tech support in Nautel. He was amazing. Thank you, Stephen. I appreciate your help and guiding me through a couple of setup steps. All right. John, why don't we don't have a lot of time. So did Justin leave the room? Yeah. Okay. As soon as Justin comes back, Diane's back in the she's the talent wrangler today. Diane, when Justin comes back in, send him on over. Okay. All righty. So let's jump right into our pictures that we're going to talk about.
Good. It sounds great.
You got your list?
I've got
Okay.
one right here. Yes,
all righty. And Suncast is ready. There's the phaser cabinet. Tell us about this.
Well, we figured it would be a good idea to talk a little bit about maintenance and also about the cold weather that's going to be coming to many of the areas. And this first picture of the phaser, if you haven't been inside your phaser to check the components, it's a good idea to do that at least once a year. What we wanted to show you here were the cranks on the phaser, and the next picture shows that a little bit better. You can see that. What you'll want to do is with another person, you want to have one person gently rock the crank back and forth while the other person is inside the phaser with the transmitter off, by the way. And he's watching to make sure that as the coil or the capacitor is turning, that it's turning with the crank. What ends up happening here, Kirk, is the set screws that hold the shafts to the coil or to the capacitor can loosen. So when you turn one crank and you think that's one full revolution, it's kind of jittering along. So it only maybe goes halfway around. So what happens is these dials on the front that tell you where the coil actually is or where the capacitor actually is tuned makes no sense, because every time you turn that crank, it slips. And you're not getting good information off of the dial counter.
The other reason to turn these cranks and have somebody watch is so that they can watch the mouse nest get dislodged from the coil. And if they need to catch the
mouse,
the mouse, they can do that. Right.
That's it. No, very good. So just some maintenance, and then something else when you're inside the phasers, you want to look and see if you've got any leaky capacitors. These are mostly oil-filled, although you may have some vacuum caps, which are better, but oil-filled caps would work out well. And the key there is that you go ahead and look for anything that is leaking inside there. And if there is a leak, you need to replace it before it explodes. You don't want a capacitor blowing up in your phaser. That's a nasty, nasty job to have to.
It's a mess. I'm not sure what cleaner works to fix that problem.
That's right, because the oil that's in there, the substance that's in there is hot, and then it ends up drying, and it's almost impossible to get off. So it's a mess.
Wow. Wow. Well, hey, look who came in the room here. Justin's here.
Wonderful.
Justin, it's time for your cameo. If you want to slip on over here, John, you can slip back a little bit. And I'm even going to part way a little bit here for this console. Justin Tucker, welcome in. JT.
Howdy.
Hi.
I was actually sitting in my office watching, and I met Diane halfway down the hall, so not a lot of lag on this. That's awesome.
That's great. Justin, tell me about who you are, what you do here, and then we're going to tell me about this room a little bit.
I'm head janitor. Southeast Regional Engineer for Cumulus,
Okay.
Part of our build team that goes around and builds studios and does major projects along with Robert Yancey and Michael Gay and all the fan, and that guy Bobby Dotson in Memphis.
Yeah.
But I've been here at this local facility here since we built it in 2000.
Oh.
And luckily just got a nice facelift. We did some moving around and moved studios and a whole lot of nice gear in here from Telos. Really love audio over IP. It makes life a lot simpler.
So the gear that you built this place with 20 years ago, that was, I guess, all analog gear since AOIP didn't exist then.
100% analog plant, all analog trunks back to the main core. We pulled in some digital cable in 2001, never used it. But everything was completely analog. So now we've completely converted the studio. The only analog signal in these studios all the way to the transmitter itself is just microphone to mic processor. Everything else is fully digital, 100%.
Now, I know that it's possible to build an analog plant using really good best practices of engineering and not have, air gaps, not have disconnects, not have hum and buzz. And I would imagine that your facility probably has served very well as an analog plant over 2 decades.
Definitely has. I started out working a analog facility that had a 25 kilowatt FM and a 5 kilowatt AM in the backyard. So I learned about hums, buzzes, ground loops, carbon fiber buildup everywhere on contacts. I learned the hard way how to get rid of hums and buzzes, and it was nice moving into a nice facility, nice plant, good clean power coming in. Everything's conditioned into the studios. Everything's on UPS. So it's nice to have a nice stable facility.
Now, a lot of Cumulus stations do have Axia audio over IP gear. Tell me what you learned or what it was like. Well, you've wired plenty of these before because you do you're regional. You guys travel around and build new places.
New York, Chicago, or not New York, Chicago, LA, San Francisco, a lot of big facilities, and also our smaller markets too. But the biggest thing that we've learned over the years is no matter how much Cat 6 you put in the studio, it's not enough.
What? Really?
I planned out for everything here, put in 24 in each studio, and built our new stock studio, and I need 25.
Oh my gosh.
So it's just, whatever you need, always add at least another 12 or double it, because you will need it in the future.
Wow. Tell me what you've learned in the past that you've put to use right here in this place.
Mostly I've learned how to, cut the holes out properly and trace the wires. They always call me the under counter guy because they stick me under the counter because I make the nice wire bundles and things like that. And, if you're very detailed, it can be tough to do some projects trying to keep everything perfect and get everything exactly in the right spot. And this studio actually had a cut-in console, so we had to fill in. So, you get a lot of things. But for this to be a totally analog studio, we did our best to cover every hole you can with something. So all that's really left is one OC weight mic arm stand here that didn't have anything to cover it. But planning it out, spend the time to count your inputs, spend the time to count how many runs you need back to your core, and just try to think for the future what you're going to need in addition. What could suddenly, we need to post This Week in Radio Tech in the studio. What kind of feeds do we need to feed? Things like that. So that's kind of the way I based our studio builds here when we did the rebuild.
Now, a lot of audio consoles, audio over IP consoles, not only from Axia, but from other manufacturers as well, you've got a surface, and then you've got a piece of electronics that goes in the rack and it's got a lot of I/O on it. This one's a little bit different. Tell me why this is an IQ-X. How is this console different from that model I just described?
2 connections on this one, power and a data line. That's all that comes in here. Everything is AOIP stream through Axia. Okay. So we have, as you've seen in the upper rack, we have Axia nodes up here to get in and out of our EAS, our delay, our multiple panel, and then we have another set of nodes under the counter. That's all the I/O for the microphones. Mostly digital. We do have 2 analog, 3 digital nodes, and then all the GPIO to control all the
lights and
lighting on the microphones and the on-air lights. And this one's not wired up.
Okay, but it's coming.
It's coming. And get all of our different sources.
So this console actually has no audio I/O built into it, but it does have a mixing engine built into it, and that's what's on the network, right?
Everything in and out here is streams and its sources. There is a vMix built in here. Not as powerful as like the Element consoles. Right. They have multiple vMix. This one has, I believe, 2 vMixes in it. You can use to do some mix minus if your phone system can't handle it. Some other things like that. Very robust consoles, very easy to work with.
And then I see you've got a phone system here. It looks like a Telos VX system.
VX going to a old original VX non-prime. It's
turn the camera just a little bit here.
Going to be moving to a VX Enterprise system that's back in the rack, just cutting over to it.
Now, have you guys been using voice over IP in your other analog studios too?
Yes. Okay, they're interfaced just through a node. Everything comes through SIP, runs straight in, comes in out of a node for analog studios right now. They'll be changed over to these consoles as well.
And I see you've got a Vox Pro here. Vox Pro is actually one of our sponsors through Broadcaster General Store. I guess just like St. John, the guy who's the spokesperson for Vox Pro, your jocks probably love this thing.
They do love it. And I love it when they went to the black control surfaces because it just fits the motif. And being able, Axia will actually can start and stop recording and start playback on here as well. So it interfaces nicely.
Cool. All right. Anything else you'd like to tell us about this studio before we get back to John?
No, just welcome. Glad to have you all guys anytime.
Well, short notice, and thank you for accommodating us. And also, JT fixed my microphone. So if you want your microphone fixed, come do a podcast with JT. You got to take him out to dinner later on.
Yes, you do.
and he'll fix your microphone for you. JT, thank you so much. I appreciate you. Thanks for the hospitality. All right, John, come on back in here, buddy. Hey, let's hit a couple more pictures before we take our next break here. Next thing you got to talk about is some transmitters, right?
Yeah, what we wanted to talk about, Kirk, was auxiliary transmitters. And what we have here is a picture of an old transmitter, which most of us, when we replace our transmitter, we keep the old one. And the whole idea is you've got it as a backup. But that backup has to work. So you want to make sure that you're testing it on a regular basis. And what we're showing here is just the front of the transmitter and the ability for you to get inside and take a look around. But if you look at an old transmitter like this, one of the biggest issues that is a problem is the air switch. And we'll see that in the next picture.
Okay. Next picture.
What this does is if the blower fan, because these are all tube transmitters, so they're cooled by air.
Right.
So if the blower motor stops working, these tubes are going to cook and they'll burn up, and they'll burn the whole transmitter up if you're not careful. So what this air switch does is it's placed right above the vent, and as the air blows up through it, it's triggering that little vane switch. And if the switch is not working, or if it's stuck in the on position, then if the blower motor fails, the transmitter is going to keep on cooking, and it will literally cook. So what you want to do is check this vane switch. This is one of the major issues on older transmitters that need to be repaired.
How many transmitters have I been to where an alligator clip from Radio Shack had been used to jumper across the switch, the airflow switch, because the switch had failed? And you know, one of the most common failures is the original metal vane that's tack welded or tack soldered onto that piece of wire that actuates the switch. It's broken off.
Yeah, and so you can repair it yourself. It's not a problem to do that. But you've got to know that there's a problem there to begin with. So, it would be fun to see among our Workbench readers how many guys have encountered transmitters with jumper clips around the interlocks, whether it be the air interlock or the door interlock or whatever. Unfortunately, it happens too often, doesn't it?
And that was on an AM transmitter.
Yes.
When that blower is not necessarily incredibly high volume. It does need to blow, but they're just moving some air past the tubes.
Correct.
On FM transmitters, you typically, or higher power AMs, you've got a blower that's really pushing air across those tube fins, and it's all very contained. And that I mean, a 10% reduction could be a problem.
Absolutely.
One time I had a transmitter that shut off, and I couldn't get the filaments to come on, and it was because that little metal vane had broken off. The switch was still there, the wire was still there, but the vane was gone. Well, you know, the transmitter's ducted outside.
Mm-hmm.
So I walked outside and I looked on the ground.
Oh my golly, you found it on the ground?
I found the piece of metal. I thought, oh, there you are.
It's amazing. The stories we could tell, huh?
And on that switch, the picture that Suncast just showed, it had a little piece, it looks like an end cap from an RCA tube, was used as a temporary, probably permanent,
right,
vane. Now, what if you used a different brand of end cap? What if you use a different brand of printing? Like if you used, like an iMac tube box, would that work too?
I would imagine it would.
Okay.
I think the thing is that you want to fix it and not just leave it broken. And so often what I experienced, Kirk, was that these switches could be very expensive. And especially if it's for an AM, it's like, well, do we really need this? Well, yes, you do. It's your insurance policy.
Yeah.
So you want to make sure that it is working.
Yeah.
So
okay. Next one real quick. we have point of failure. Oh, the high voltage capacitor. Ooh, look at that.
Oh boy. Yeah, these things are inside transmitters, but they're also sometimes in your storage area. And what you want to be careful of here is that you don't get across those two terminals. When these capacitors are stored, you want to take a piece of wire, and it can be just plain old bus wire or a shielded wire or something like that, but you want to connect it across those two terminals. That prevents any charge from building up inside the capacitor. If it doesn't have a way to go to ground or to be discharged, and you get across that thing, that'll knock you off the room, across the room. It could kill you. So you just want to be very careful about capacitors.
So what's showing on the screen is what you want to do. You see that wire?
Yes.
And there's a ground terminal right there on the capacitor. Looks like for that purpose.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
And now you don't want to do this inside your transmitter.
Right.
But you want to be careful when you go into the transmitter that you're shorting using a shorting stick when the transmitter is off, and you touch all of these terminals to make sure that there's any charge that there is going to be bled down to ground.
Coming up, we're talking to John Bisset, author of the Workbench column at Radio World Magazine. Are you in every single issue?
Yes, sir.
Every single issue. And if right now, here in 2023, if you go back and look at his 30 years of articles and you start implementing his tips and tricks, you will probably pass away before you get finished. That's how many tips and tricks.
It's been a long time. Yes, sir. It sure has.
And we're going to cover some of those in a few minutes. It's This Week in Radio Tech. John and I are in Charleston, South Carolina at the Cumulus radio stations here. And we thank JT so much for letting us do the show from here. Hey, our show is brought to you in part by our friends at Angry Audio. And Chris Tarr's not here, so I'm going to talk to you about some of the things that they have going on at Angry Audio. Hey, Suncast, pick a page. I've been so delighted with what we've been using at Angry Audio. We've been using the Guest Gizmo, which is a headphone amplifier and a mute button right there on it, and they're so easy to implement. There's the front page of their website. Look at all the things that Catfish and Angry Audio are making now that make your studios just look amazing. At my new studio in Oxford, Mississippi, we got two Guest Gizmos, and they got installed so easily. They look great. Plus a headphone gizmo that's under the counter. So the main host operator, he didn't want his headphone cable stretched across there. What we're showing right now is the new microphone preamplifier, the microphone processor available. They have a couple of them available. One of them is called the Rebel. It's for your RE microphones, your RE20, your RE27, the new RE320, I believe. There's a new one that's less expensive.
And Kirk, that's a neat thing too. I don't know that anybody in the past has ever thought of, let's make a mic processor for Shure microphones.
Yeah.
Let's make a mic processor for Electro Voice microphones.
Yeah. Yep.
Really great idea.
And these are well tuned to the capsule that comes in those, because every mic's got at least every series of mic has a different capsule. And I realize the RE20, the RE27, the RE320, they do have different capsules, but they're in the same family.
Mm-hmm.
And Corny Gould, do you know Corny? Oh my goodness, he is so good at this. He has tuned these mic processors to be amazing. So you buy the mic processor that goes with your mic, and they only have two at the moment, but they're the most popular mics out there. And there's very little control setup to do. There are a few controls that are behind a panel, but for the most part, you plug this thing in, you set the input level and the output level, and man, it just sounds the way you want it to sound.
That's really great.
Corny also has some novel ideas about what we think of as downward expansion, and it's basically getting rid of room noise. And it's you basically tune this thing to how much room do you want to eliminate. And Corny has this algorithm that's just amazing for that. So you ought to check that out from Angry Audio. The website is angryaudio.com, and you're just going to love all the stuff that they have there. It's really, really amazing what they have. Boy, and I've used a bunch of it myself. Hey, our show is also brought to you by Max Connect. And, there's such a shortage of engineers. Not everybody has a Justin Tucker, right? And some of the other great engineers that are out there. But a lot of smaller stations, even some medium-sized stations, don't have the manpower that they need. And that's where Max Connect Group comes in. So Max Connect, they started advertising with us as just offering the prioritized wireless service. And they still have that. And it works great. but they also offer engineering services. They have a full broadcast technical firm with offices in Alabama, Maryland, Ohio, South Carolina, and Texas. And so really anywhere east of the Mississippi, they can help you out. And if you got a project, they'll be glad to travel anywhere you need. But they're close by. They can build studios. They can build transmitter sites. They can refurbish studios and transmitter sites. One thing that is, I think they're amazing at, is implementing new remote control systems. And so many stations have an old remote control, and it's not helping them out, not giving them the data, the information, the warnings that they need to have. And Josh Bone and his crew are absolute experts at implementing new, sophisticated, web-based, IP-based remote control systems. And that's one of the things that I think you ought to really talk to them about. Of course, they can handle any project, diplexing, triplexing things together. They have a expertise on hand, and they are now acquiring a tower company, so they can provide you with full tower services as well. So check them out at Max Connect. I know it's spelled funny because it's the internet. All the good names are taken. MAXXKONNECT, Max Connect Group, and you'll be really happy. I mean, Josh Bone is just a terrific fella. And their group does great engineering. All right, I'm here with John Bisset, and it's Kirk Harnack on This Week in Radio Tech, and we're going to roll right back into some of John's
more pictures.
All right,
take a look and see what we've got next.
What's next? Inside of some semi-flex coax, huh?
I threw this picture in, Kirk, because a lot of folks, especially folks in the IT side that haven't gotten into really the engineering RF transmission side of things, don't really know what's going on inside. They just see this big black cable.
Yeah.
Well, this was a cross-section of coax, 3-inch coax, and you can see the center conductor. But what I want you to see here is that the center conductor is not perfectly in the middle. And the whole purpose of coaxial cable is that it stays at a characteristic impedance of 50 ohms. Yeah. If that center conductor starts moving around, you're not going to have that 50 ohm transfer of power. There's going to be a problem with reflected power on your system.
Right.
So you can see what's happened here. And the way that this thing is spaced, if you look in there to the left, you'll see this little plastic spacer. It spins around. It's a kind of a spiral that runs all the way around, all the way down the tube, and it holds that center conductor in place. One of the things you need to be careful of with this is that because that plastic is holding the center conductor in place, you can't just bend this thing any which way you want. There's a bend radius depending on the size of the coax. So you want to be careful how, especially when you're coming off a tower, or if you're plumbing this inside coming out of a transmitter, you don't want to try to do a right angle bend.
Right.
That's not going to work. You'll end up causing this center conductor to drift off from the center, and it won't be 50 ohms anymore.
Well, and the name is key. It's a center conductor. It's got to be in the center.
That's right.
And one of the biggest things I've had inept tower crews, especially putting up smaller coax like a 1/2 inch or 7/8 inch coax, they will lay it out on the ground, but they won't lay it out properly. They're dragging it up the tower, and they form a loop at the bottom, and they pull, and that loop gets tighter and tighter and tighter until finally I say, "Hey, stop! Stop! You're going to ruin the coax." And I have had coax ruined by inept tower crews that and they've had to pay for it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
And Kirk, that's also another reason why you want to be on the site when you've got people working at your transmitter site, whether it's the air conditioning guy, the tower crew, whoever it might be.
Yeah.
You want to be there to make sure that sort of thing doesn't happen.
When I'm introducing, you mentioned IT guys, they don't really know what's going on in that coax. What I do is if I'm showing the IT guy around the transmitter side, I tell them that those black hoses that go up the tower, they're full of computer viruses. And if they get a cut or a break in any one of them, it's bad. It's game over. So we have to. That's why we put nitrogen in there to try to keep those computer viruses very dormant, quiet. That's
they can't breathe with nitrogen.
That's right. They can't breathe. Yeah.
There we go.
All right.
Our next picture is one of the issues that you can run into. Unfortunately, a lot of times folks will use transmission line and antennas for target practice.
It's instant gratification.
There you go. Well, the problem is I don't think the hunter or whoever it is that's shooting realizes what he's done. It's just, I hit that. So, and the station's still on the air.
Yeah.
Unless it breaks that center conductor, which it normally is not going to, all that's going to happen is the nitrogen and all those viruses are going to pour out of the slit. But I wanted to show this so you can see one of the problems that you run into. And the problem here is that with a gash this large, water can get inside. Man, it's going to cause all kinds of problems. Remember, this is a sealed system. From the top of the antenna all the way down to the transmitter site. It's completely sealed. Mm-hmm. And if you have any opening in there, you're going to have a problem.
You know, you ever watch those CSI shows?
Oh, yeah.
And they find a bullet hole in the wall and they put a stick in there and the
laser. Right?
And the laser, and they see where it came from, right? Well, at one of my tower sites, our tower guy found a bullet hole. And he put a stick, he looked right through there, put a stick in there, said, aha, it points to the back porch of that little house over there.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah.
Wow!
Oh yeah, they were using the tower for target practice. Because if you hit that red light, that's instant gratification.
It went out. Yeah, and you know, if they're that close and the tower comes down because a plane hits it because the light is out, karma, huh?
Yeah, exactly. So all right, what's next?
Okay, well, let's see. We've got
nitrogen tanks.
Nitrogen tanks.
Yeah,
really important here. Again, I don't want to pick on the IT guys, but you guys haven't been out to a lot of these sites like we have.
Well, this is where we keep the viruses.
There you go. That's right. And what we wanted to show you here was two things. Number one, the chain around the tank. This tank has nitrogen in it, and it is under about 2,200 pounds of pressure.
That's 2,200
yes,
pounds.
That'll blow a hole in your hand if you hold your hand up to that, or it'll put your eye out if you turn the valve and you're looking in it.
Oh, yeah.
So this is really dangerous stuff. Again, you want to be very careful.
The story that what threatens my heart on this is if that falls over and if it breaks off the valve at the top, so there's no more valve there, or there's a big gash up there. Not that the tank itself is thick steel.
Yes,
it's not going to be opened up. But the valve at the top is much more malleable metal, and it has to be to seal up. If that breaks off, that tank becomes a rocket. It goes through walls, it goes through transmitters, it goes through people, it goes through the car outside. It's very. I've seen there's videos on YouTube you can see of these things getting loose and
what it does. We had a situation where one fell over. We got called in when I was doing contract work, and it went through a cinder block wall. I mean, it was a perfect circle. It just shot right through that wall.
Wow.
They found it about 200 or 300 feet out in the transmitter field. But it's just insane. So just keep in mind, there are a lot of dangerous things at transmitter sites, but this is one that you really want to show some respect. So what we've done is we've got a chain that is holding it to prevent, as Kirk said, this thing toppling over and having the fitting break off. The next picture, though, shows a slick way of doing this chain. So this is one of these resealable links that you can buy at the hardware store. And that way you're not using a lock. It allows you to undo the chain so that you can replace the tank and put a new one in, or to take the spare out and use that. But using one of these little resealable or reclosable links is a good way of holding on to that chain.
And if you got transfer sites that need a chain, you can go to the hardware store and get some eye bolts or whatever you need to attach to the wall, whatever methodology is going to work. And you can under $25. You can
absolutely, and that's what this engineer has done here. You see the eye bolts going into the wall, and the link, and then the chain. So, and then we've got one more photo here of this, I believe. Yeah, the cap. You want to keep those on these for the same reason that Kirk mentioned about these things turning into a missile if they ever fall over and that valve breaks off. So storing these, make sure the cap is on, make sure that it's on tight, and just keep in mind that you've got a very dangerous piece of equipment here. You want to make sure that it's not going to cause a problem.
It's not a guarantee, but with that cap on, it's probably not going to get damaged. And if it does, you can see that the nitrogen can still come out the side there. Sure. And the cap will supposedly stay on there. That's some pretty heavy duty threads.
Absolutely.
That it's on there with. Yeah. All right.
Good.
What's next?
Good deal. Oh, let's see, what do we have here? Oh, this is one of my favorites. So I told you that it was getting colder, or starting to get colder. Maybe not necessarily down here in Charleston, but up north and up in the mountains. These are really cool jackets that you can buy that have heat wire all through the body of the jacket. And if we go to the next picture, you can see the battery is actually in the pocket, and it keeps the entire jacket really toasty warm. And I have been told by the people that use these that they would not be caught in the winter without one of them. They just do such a great job. And the final picture here, Kirk, you press the little logo and it turns the heater on. So it's really pretty cool. But yeah, they're not cheap. They're probably a couple of $100. But you know what? If you're doing a lot of work outside, you want to be comfortable, and it's worth it. It's worth it for yourself. You don't get frostbite, and you can stay out a little bit longer doing work around the transmitter building or wherever you are. Keeping one of these handy is a good idea. Awesome. Not in Charleston.
You probably don't. Well, it doesn't get cold here in the winter at all.
Well, it gets a little cold, but not cold where you need something like that.
You have the moderating influence of the ocean, right?
That's right. Yes, absolutely. That's it.
Right. Hey, it's This Week in Radio Tech. I'm Kirk Harnack, along with John Bisset. John is the author of the Workbench column for Radio World Magazine. John joins us typically about 3 times a year to bring us up to date on what's cool and what's happening. He'll have some more tips for us coming up. We're coming to you live right now from the Cumulus radio stations in Charleston, South Carolina. So we're glad that you're with us. Hey, our show is brought to you in part by Broadcasters General Store, BGS in Ocala, Florida, amazing supplier of broadcast equipment. And I say amazing because they actually have gone to an enormous amount of trouble over the last 30, 35 years developing their own computer systems and software. They've been maintaining it for years, and they keep adding to it. That keeps track of your orders. It basically brings all the pieces of broadcast equipment that they represent right to the eyes of the salesperson that you're talking to, the order taker, the salesperson. And so they have an enormous amount of information available to them, and they can help you decide, hey, these, whatever you're looking for. These mic preamps are actually running about 8 weeks in supply. We have some other ones that are running 6 weeks. We have some others that are off the shelf. What would you like to do? That's the kind of help in your decision-making that BGS can give you. And one thing that you need to call them for, and that's Broadcast Tools. Broadcast Tools has, these guys, Don Wingett and his company. Really? One of the things they have is a silence sensor that connects to the internet to give you easy alerts and easy monitoring, too. It is called the Audio Sentinel Web RJ, and it's Broadcast Tools' next generation of web-enabled 2-channel stereo silence and phase monitor with an integrated transparent 2x1 switcher. Well, that's a lot. It's designed to monitor 2 analog audio sources, one primary and the other backup. And when silence is detected on the primary input, it can automatically switch to the backup input via mechanical latching relays. They're latched, mechanically latching. That means if the power dies during this time when it's latched over to the backup, you stay on the latched input. It includes a browser-based HTML5 web interface, and it supports SSL TLS email. So it'll email you through any of the sophisticated, security-aware services. It can also do SMS email notification, and it has SNMP. So if you monitor your facility with SNMP, great way to handle it. The Audio I/O features the pluggable screw terminal blocks and standard RJ45 audio input jacks, wired in parallel for ease of wiring. So if you're a Studio Hub user, you're going to love this because you just plug right in, no soldering, no wire stripping. But hey, if you don't use Studio Hub, you can still use the screw terminals, the removable ones. I love this box. It's really, really good. And I love the fact that it actually is a switcher as well. So it can automatically monitor that main input and switch over to the backup input if you need to. It's Broadcast Tools, real problem solvers. This is the Audio Sentinel plus Web RJ web-based analog silence detector. It's available, of course, from Broadcasters General Store. You want to check them out at bgs.cc. That's their website. Easy to remember, just 5 letters, bgs.cc. And they represent such a huge variety of manufacturers like my employer, Axia. There's that Axia Altus. I just installed one of those. That Rave console you saw a minute ago. Ooh, there's that beautiful Quasar console. The XR and the SR. the Telos VX. Hey, we just talked to Justin Tucker about that a few minutes ago here in their studios. And there's some Comrex Access NX. Beautiful boxes. And all their specials, they have those too. So they do deals with their manufacturers whenever they can to bring you extra special value. Thanks a lot, Broadcaster General Store, for sponsoring This Week in Radio Tech. John.
Yes, sir.
Let's get John.
I got one more here to look at, Kirk, with regard to cold weather.
Oh, okay.
And that's hand warmers.
Oh, okay.
If you don't have some hand warmers handy with this cold weather, these are really pretty cool because you can put these in your truck.
Yeah.
And you don't have to use them, but if you need them, they're there. And what you do is you break them apart. They're chemical components inside that actually will cause heat to be generated. So if your hands get cold or your feet get cold and you want to warm them up, having these handy is a really great idea. And you can pick these up on the internet. You can pick them up at the big box stores. In fact, Kirk, that was something I was going to suggest. When was the last time you went around to a Lowe's or a Home Depot and just walked the aisles and look to see what was there?
No, it's been a while. I'm usually in a hurry. I know exactly what I'm going to go find. I go get it now and make a beeline for the checkout.
There's always new stuff at these places, and it's a great idea to spend some time there. Just spend your lunch hour, walk up and down the aisles and look at what they have.
Now, they had, in that picture, they had a hand warmer, and then they had the toe warmers.
Yes.
Now, what happens if you accidentally switch those up? Do they still work?
Yeah, they do. I think it makes your feet warmer than their hands, I guess. I don't know. I'm not sure. But no, the foot warmers are shaped like a shoe, so they'll slip, or like a insert, and they'll slip inside your shoe to keep your foot warm.
Hey, you ever climb the tower, your buttocks get pretty cold too. So I hope they have those.
I haven't seen those yet, but that's a good idea.
All right. What do you have next?
Okay,
year?
We've got talking about going to Home Depot or Lowe's.
Yeah.
These are really cool lights. I've seen a lot of different kind of lights and had a lot of people talk about them from the Workbench column, but these have magnets on each end. And in the next picture, you'll see how they actually work. You can stick them on anything metal, and that bright light, boy, that thing just lights up. So the inside of a transmitter that you're trying to see something. And Kirk, what's really great, these are LED lights. They're not going to fail. You're not going to drop the trouble lamp and bust the bulb, and then you got to find another bulb to put in there. And the fact that they can be stuck on any kind of steel container makes them really, really helpful.
Okay, that is brilliant. And because so often what you need is an area of light that is, that is either above your head or near your shoulders, that really helps you out. And the fact that it magnetically can stick like that, wow. The other thing that you can do with that, I don't know, you ever drop a screw on the floor?
Oh, sure.
And one of the best ways to find it is to put a light on the floor.
Absolutely.
And make a long shadow out of that screw.
Yes.
Helps you find it. And these lights would help you do that too. What a brilliant idea. I love that.
So these are the kind of things that you'll find as you walk the halls of Home Depot or Lowe's. And, also peruse the internet as well. But there are always neat new products that these companies are putting out there for you to use that just make your life a lot easier.
You know what I've seen? I got to give credit to and some of the EMF engineers, Air One and Caleb and Air One. They put LED strip lighting, the cheap rollout strip, in the back of their racks, and they point it at the back of the equipment, right? So they just line it, and there's a little transformer plugs in the wall, little power supply, and they light up the back of the gear, and you can see it so easily. Well, instead of getting a strip of LEDs like that, I got some Christmas lights, and it makes it very festive.
Oh, that's the way to do it.
We can all use a little festiveness at the
There you go. Absolutely.
And excuse me. I know it's your show, but
no, it's your show.
Something we've been doing recently. We've got cheap cameras like Wise brand cameras at our transmitter sites, and we love them. You can set them for different levels of detecting motion and that kind of stuff, and that's helpful. We have some sites that are shared, and we know when like the air conditioning guy is there, things like that. But now we've got LED overhead lighting at most of our transmitter sites we just leave the lights on all the time because that way we can see better with the cameras than with the infrared, and it costs next to nothing to have those lights on. Some people said, well, yeah, but that attracts bugs out in the middle of a bean field, and that may be true. We haven't really noticed an increase in that, although it's possible. So there may be a downside, but at most of our sites, we put a piece of tape on the switch and just leave the lights on.
Just leave it up.
Yeah, we get nice color pictures all the time.
No, that's really great. It's a good idea. And if you're not using those cameras, they're so cheap now. I mean, you'd be crazy not to. With the issues of people breaking in and damaging your facility, having cameras so that you know, hey, something's going on, let me see what it is. Just a really good idea to invest in those.
Larry Fuss keeps buying those pan cam ones that are motorized panning and so forth, and they have a function where they will follow a person. They can identify, there's a body, and they'll follow it, and that's creepy.
Oh, boy, I bet.
You walk through the transmitter building, the camera's following you around. They also, now they have pet detection. So we actually have one in the lobby of a couple of our stations, and one of our managers brings her dog to work. And so every morning I get a notification, person and pet detected on the Greenville camera in the lobby.
So is the idea, though, that it ignores the pet? So it's only if it senses a human?
We have it set to tell us when the pet is there. She brings her dog to work every day. We thought, hey, it's got pet detection. Let's try that out. Sure enough, every day there's the dog.
That's really great. Yeah. That's great.
I think that they have an algorithm that knows the difference between a dog and a person.
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Dog's a lot shorter.
There you go. No, that's true.
All right, let's continue. I'm sorry to take up so much time.
We've got one last shot here that I wanted to show you. And when I saw this sign, it was like, boy, this is great. People need to know how dangerous transmitter sites can be.
Yeah.
And putting something like this up, I don't know, hopefully they can read, but it will also make them think twice before they go in and touch the tower or go into the transmitter building and put their hand inside a transmitter. So, finding things like this can be helpful. Putting this in the window of your transmitter building, there's no guarantee, but, all of these ideas are tips to kind of look as an insurance to keep your facility running and without having problems.
You know what? We actually have one of those signs at one of our transmitter sites. Yeah, we found one. And
that's great.
Yeah.
Very good.
It's in an area that, let's just say, the local residents might be willing to be curious about it, or willing to steal some of the metal there. So at least that's one site where we elected to.
Have you painted your metal black?
That's a good idea.
It's called Gardner Wet Dry, WETRDRY. Okay. And you can get this at Home Depot or Lowe's. It comes in a paint can. I think you can get gallons or two or 3 gallon sizes if you want. But this is a tar type compound that won't hurt the copper, but you plaster it all over it and you can't get this stuff off the copper. So if a thief is stupid enough to steal your copper, when he takes it to the reclamation place, they're not going to take it. So he's wasted all of his time. Most copper thieves understand, can't touch this because there's this asphalt compound on the copper. But the other thing that it does is, because it's black, it's a matte black finish, you don't see that nice, clean copper that's shiny. Oh, hey, steal me and turn me in for some money.
Yeah.
So you don't have that problem. So something else to consider.
Nice. All right. What's next? Well, what's next?
That's the end of our
that's our list.
Photos. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
We didn't think we'd get through all of these.
Wow. Hey, well, let's talk about another topic that you and I are familiar with, and I've been doing seminars about this, and that is the new way that people are building studio facilities. And one of those ways is by using more things that are software. And what kind of has brought this about is, well, if we look at this audio console behind us, this is a piece of hardware, but there is a mixing engine that's running inside this, and it's actually running in a Linux on an ARM-based processor. So the console is already running software, right? So also the Vox Pro over here, it's running software on the computer, right? This is just an interface for to manipulate the computer quickly and easily. But it's software. Here's an automation system. We know this is software running on a computer. Knowing Justin, it's probably a really nice computer, a good quality one. And so all these things, and we know this TV behind me right here that's showing off the Telos Alliance logo. What's showing that off? It's a computer. It's probably running Linux
with software.
Yeah.
Right.
And of course, the device that I'm using right now to do this show is a computer. It's a MacBook. And back at the headquarters of the GFQ network, Suncast is using a powerful PC to run vMix software, which is made for producing television programs, video programs. And so you kind of get my point here. Even your Sage EAS is running software because you can update it, right? Your satellite receivers are running software. Your audio processors that are on the air 24/7, doesn't matter if it's an Omnia or an Orban or anything modern is going to be running some kind of software. Different kinds of platforms, different operating systems. So we thought, why not just take this the next step? Instead of buying proprietary hardware to run that, computers, especially servers, have become actually pretty generic. And that's why if you've got a data center full of Dell computers, the HP guy can come along, the sales guy, and say, hey, next time you buy computers, buy HPs. Here's all the reasons why you should. Well, what about running our software? They'll run your software just fine. The servers are meant to be pretty generic. Oh yeah, there's differences in their command and control and monitoring systems, but they'll run Linux or Windows or whatever. So we thought, what about putting software? Let's take the software that maybe runs. Oh, we have a VX phone system back over here too. Well, the VX phone system that's back in the back here at Cumulus it's a box that Telos Alliance arranged to have built. It had the metalwork built, painted, and all that. And we designed the insides, but we didn't design the processor. That's a standard x86 CPU running Linux. It's a nice special version of Linux that's running, making the phone system work. Even the phone itself is running BusyBox Linux on it. You see where I'm going with this? Well, you've probably heard of containerized software,
right?
And but by the way, this is leading up to a commercial announcement of one of our sponsors. And being able to run an audio console or a phone system, or an audio processor,
right,
or an intercom system, or coming soon to a computer near you. There are other applications. I strongly suspect that we'll have a profanity delay.
I was just going to say
that instead of running in a box that you screw in the rack, it can run on a server computer, and you can run a number of things on the same computer. So at my new radio stations, I'm running an audio console and a phone system on the same computer. Yeah. So this is called containerized software, and I think we're going to end up having tips and tricks and maybe some Workbench articles about some of the
I would imagine so. Here. Yeah, and Kirk, what's really neat about this, when Telos got into this, we found out that organizations such as Bank of America, all the big credit card companies, they've been using containers for years and years and years. So they kind of, I guess, blazed the trail, working on all the problems and trying to get all the bugs out and so forth. We're coming in now using that technology and saying, oh, you did this, you did that. Here's the way to make it all work. And now we're offering the containers so that you can take advantage of this. So, yeah, it's really, really neat. And you're right. I mean, it'll get to a point where everything is containerized.
For those of you who are engineers or maybe developers out there, one of the challenges that companies like Telos Alliance has had is, I mentioned earlier that we may have a special version of Linux that's always been running our mix engine, our VX, and things like that. We've used a version of Linux that has a real-time component into it. So instead of being transaction-based or task-based, it's got to be real-time based. In other words, we've got to accomplish these things in this much time. Otherwise, your audio's no bueno.
Exactly.
So getting that to run in a containerized environment, whereas all these other companies that have been using containers for years, PayPal, Bank of America, MasterCard, Visa,
sure.
insurance companies. It's all transaction based. If it takes an extra half a millisecond,
Right.
not a big deal.
If it takes 3 seconds.
3 seconds,
it's not a big deal.
Yeah. Customers waiting just a little bit, but well, So, but audio, you can tell instantly if something had to wait 3 seconds.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's no good. So that's part of what companies like Telos Alliance have been working on in the background, is making sure that the CPU resources and cycles are available in more common Linux distributions and then in containerized environments. And by the way, that's one reason why virtualization can be problematic. I'm not saying you can't do it, but virtualization, you got to pay real big attention to how much attention does that operating system get, so it can do its tasks in what seems like real time. Whereas containerized software, it's still running on a computer. It's still got Linux underneath it, but it's very lightweight. And so the virtualization, or sorry, the containerization engine, typically a Docker runtime, is able to service these containers really quickly, or even pin them to their own CPUs. So a container isn't actually waiting; it's got a CPU. And this container, it's not waiting; it's got a CPU. So just like this audio console here has actually a couple of ARM-based CPUs available to it, and it's the only thing running on it. So as a container can have a CPU assigned to it. I know virtualization can as well, but
Sure.
Containers were made that way. Okay, enough about that. We had a couple minutes. Thought I'd give that talk to help get people more accustomed to that.
And we need to let people know we've thought about those that don't want to fool with containers as well.
Oh yeah,
We've got a new box that we just came out with, the AP 3000.
In fact, there's a couple of choices now, because installing a container in a Linux environment isn't child's play, and I can't even do it well myself. We've got experts at Telos Alliance who can do that if you get your own. But there's now two ways to do that. There's the AP3000 that John just mentioned.
There's the Bionics product.
And there's the Bionics product. And we're going to take a little closer look at that Bionics product right now. Broadcast Bionics recognized this as a problem and an opportunity early on. That is, many broadcasters are not IT experts. And a lot of IT experts really have no experience with containers. They do with virtual machines, but containers, again, are a little bit different animal. So let's take a look at this website from Broadcast Bionics. They came out with something called Virtual Rack. Virtual Rack. And Virtual Rack is both hardware. They sell you the hardware, a couple different sizes of hardware you can buy from Broadcast Bionics. And then it's got a Linux operating system, plus it's got a beautiful graphic interface over this. And it's almost like a candy store.
Mm-hmm.
You go in there and you pick the functions that you want this box to do. I want an audio console. Oh, you know what? I want 3 audio consoles. And I need 2 audio processors, and I need a phone system. And you click on those things, and within typically under a minute, they get installed. Now, they're not licensed yet. You get your licensing from the respective manufacturers. And Telos Alliance isn't the only one in there. There's also Sound 4 and 2WCOM are other manufacturers now that are doing containerized software. But you pick the ones you want, you let them install, it installs them. Each type of application has a certain amount of, let's say, CPU horsepower that it needs. Well, the virtual rack keeps track of that for you, and it won't let you overtax the computer. If you're doing this yourself, yeah, you can overtax the computer. But the virtual rack doesn't let you do that. It tells you exactly how much space you've got, space in terms of CPU attention and time. And then if you like what you install, you license it. And a lot of these programs, you have limited basic functionality without licensing it. So you can license, for example, a Telos Alliance Altus console and have 4 faders. I think there's certain squawks and tones and noise that it puts out instead of the audio you really want, but you can play with it.
Sure.
And then if you say, yeah, I like this, this looks good, well, then you license it and it's yours. All right, so that's what Broadcast Bionics has brought to the table. These are available worldwide, but here in the United States, you can get them through your favorite Broadcast Bionics dealer. If you go to their website at bionics.co.uk and you look for Virtual Rack, you'll find a couple of videos there. We had Dan McQuillan on the show a few weeks ago to explain this. There's a couple of videos where he explains it again if you want to see that again. And so you ought to check it out. I'm very excited about this technology because I have implemented this myself at my own radio station. This is where I get to say I eat my own dog food, right?
Very good. Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So we, our jock in the morning, he can bring it up on any computer, but he's got a little Windows computer and a $329 Dell touchscreen, and he just brings it up full screen, and he's just, can move the faders around, and it's just easy peasy.
It's really neat. And if you haven't looked at containers or considered it, take a look at our website. We've got a lot of good information on it. In fact, Kirk did Container University. If you really want to get into how it all works, you've got like 7 or 8
8 hours of your life you'll never get back.
Yeah, but you'll learn a lot.
You'll learn a lot. Thanks a lot, Broadcast Bionics at bionics.co.uk. I think the other website they have is bionic.radio. Takes you to the same place, bionic.singular.radio. Thanks, Broadcast Bionics. All right, John, it's our final couple of minutes here. We usually get a tip of the week, and so I'm going to surprise you again and say, hey, you got a tip of the week for us.
But I think the tip of the week, Kirk, is one of safety, just being careful.
Oh.
We've both had instances where we've either felt electricity or we've heard of people that have touched something that they shouldn't, sometimes with fatal results. Very, very important. If you've just been assigned chief engineer duties for a station, and we know that happens, and you may not know everything that you need to know, take a buddy to go in. And that's a good reason why you want to grab membership in the SBE. The SBE meetings, you can find somebody, hey, come down with me. I'll buy you a cup of coffee, walk through the transmitter with me and show me what I should be paying attention to.
This is serious stuff. You just made me remember that I didn't know them well, but I knew I'd met them, shook their hands, talked to them before. 2 different engineers who died alone in the back of a transmitter. Not at the same time. It's 2 different engineers, different, and they didn't have anybody with them. Now, they were older guys, fully capable. They knew the rules, and maybe just taking a shortcut. I don't know. I'm not here to judge. I don't know. Maybe they tripped on something and reached to grab and touch something they shouldn't have. So, but whether you're experienced or not, man, if you can have somebody with you, and maybe even tell the station owner or manager, I won't work on the 10,000 volts in there by myself. Frankly, I won't work on the 245 volts in the panel alone. I need to have somebody with me. They don't have to know about electronics. They got to be able to dial 911.
Just be able to dial 911, yeah. And Kirk, with that quick story. So I was chief engineer of a station. General manager came down there. We were off the air, and he was really upset. This was in a major market, and you don't want to be off the air. So he showed up, and I went to reset the transmitter. And he's standing there and flames shoot out of the top of the transmitter. He went out that door, bolted out, never saw him again the rest of the day. I got a whole new set of respect from him and everybody else. You work on that stuff. It's kind of crazy, but but I know not to put my hand in there. And when you're tired, it's late at night and you just want to get the thing fixed, you can cut corners, and you just don't want to do that.
We want you all here.
Absolutely.
To watch the next episode of This Week in Radio Tech.
And to buy more Telos gear.
And my tip is check out his Workbench article. It's in every Radio World magazine edition. And you usually have, 2 or 3 tips?
Yeah, absolutely. And if you get on the website, go to radioworld.com. You can subscribe for free. And it's a really great publication. It covers management, it covers programming, promotions, as well as technical things. So it's not just for the engineer, it's for everybody. And with that in mind, put your home address, because if it comes to the station, somebody else is going to grab it. I guarantee
it may not get to you. Yeah.
That's right. You're not going to see it.
Hey, it's been This Week in Radio Tech. Kirk Harnack, John Bisset. I'm glad to have John on about 3 times a year to talk about things that he's come across that'll help all of us. So we're glad to get this information out to you. Share it with your friends. We appreciate it very much. Hey, if you're in Georgia, going to the Georgia Association of Broadcasters Convention, GabCon, I'm going to be there on Friday night and doing an engineering day with the SBE. It's the SBE Ennis Workshop, SBE Ennis Workshop, on Saturday, all day Saturday. So if you're going to be there, I'll look forward to meeting you. It'll be terrific. And then the awards banquet actually on Saturday night. So
very good.
We'll be there for that. Thanks a lot to Suncast for engineering and producing this show, This Week in Radio Tech. He's always got his hands at the ready and making the show look great. I appreciate that. And appreciate John showing up as well.
My pleasure. Thank you, Kirk.
And thanks to Justin Tucker for his incredible hospitality, welcoming us in here and just making everything work well. We'll see you next week on This Week in Radio Tech. Bye-bye.